football, basketball, baseball, and more. Your source for ACC sports is ACC Nation. Available on podcast, streaming radio, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe.
This is ACC Nation. That's Will Ojanen. I'm Jim Quist, and our special guest from Clemson on Sports Illustrated is Drew Cagle. Drew, thank you for joining us. A first-timer, so we're going to get to find out a little bit about Good Eats.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate you guys having me on, and yeah, excited to join.
Yeah, good deal. Hey, there's a lot to talk about with Clemson, and we're going to talk about football. Big win over a ranked team here. Clemson coming away with a 20-19 win over Louisville, really kind of spoiling things for Louisville. What's next for Clemson? I mean, we're looking at bowl.
I think that's the next step, right? I mean, it's crazy. If you would have told me after the Duke loss at 3-5, they're sitting 3 wins away from a bowl. Like
Yeah.
the Furman game, which they're about to play this upcoming week, that was the game that everyone, okay, well, they're probably going to win that one, but can they find 2 other wins? South Carolina might be, that might be a win, but you never know with a rivalry. But they've really hit the ground running these past couple weeks, I'd say. And it hasn't been pretty. In the Florida State game, some missed opportunities by FSU in that one. Louisville, as many people know, the missed field goals, overall a sloppy game. So it hasn't been pretty, but I really think that the resiliency of the team and the program, as Dabo Swinney talked about after the game, I think it's been under the microscope a lot this year, let's be honest, from a local level here and also a national level, but they've responded pretty well.
Yeah. It's always a good indicator just how good a program is by how they can recover after, maybe a couple of losses or things not going their way. They always find some way to pull that win out. And so, again, you talk about resiliency. It's for Dabo Swinney and for Clemson. That's a perfect word for that program. I think that they have demonstrated that, no one should be just walking straight ahead. You should be looking over your shoulder if Clemson is on your schedule. So, Will, I'm going to let you roll with it because I know there's some questions you want to get into on the football side.
Yeah, absolutely. And good to meet you, Drew. I'm going to start with the game against Louisville on Friday night. And I think one of the things that stood out to me in that game was just the way the Clemson kept fighting and just putting themselves in the position to win. I mean, Louisville had, I don't know how many opportunities to win that game and then just couldn't
Absolutely.
do it. But I think the thing and you mentioned it, the resiliency of this team. Like they're underachieving expectations, yet here they are. They've won back-to-back games and are just, and thanks to a really good run game, they're right there with a bowl on deck.
For sure. And I think it's funny if you would have asked me before the season who the MVP of the team is going to be on the year, I probably would have said, I don't know, Peter Woods, TJ Parker. I mean, Cade Klubnik was the preseason player of the year in the ACC. And honestly, right now, I'd say it's Adam Randall. The running game has really been a pleasant surprise. It hasn't been there every single week, but especially over the past couple weeks and even when they were losing games like to Syracuse, to Georgia Tech, he's been a real bright spot this season. Coming over from playing the receiver position, Dabo says, "What's the best thing you do? You run with the ball. So let's give you more chances to do that, right?" So he's really been a bright spot, and it's honestly hard to see how the team would be able to get the wins that they have if he hadn't performed the way that he has.
Hey, Klubnik, he really hasn't been an explosive quarterback this year, at least compared to recent years. Obviously, we talked about him being preseason ACC Player of the Year, and I think it's safe to say he hasn't quite met those expectations. Can you pinpoint a reason why that is?
It's interesting, right? So coming into the season, one big reason why a lot of national pundits and regional pundits were excited about Clemson's offense was you've got so many guys back. You have an experienced quarterback. He's already been in the system, for multiple seasons under offensive coordinator Garrett Riley. It didn't really start the way you wanted it. I mean, a lot of times in the first 3, 4 games of the season, Klubnik just was missing reads. There were receivers open. Sometimes the play calling got a little bit odd and a little bit the timing just got a little bit off with that. But I think overall he's been able to see the field much, much better as the season has gone on. It hasn't been, to be frank, the season that he wanted. I think he would admit that to you if you asked him right now. But overall, he's just looking to finish the season strong and hopefully make it to bowl eligibility and finish off his career strong.
Receiver wise, we hear a lot about Antonio Williams. He's probably going to be playing in the NFL next season. Brian Westco's having a really strong season, but I don't hear a lot of talk about TJ Moore, who leads the team in actual receiving yardage. What can you tell us about TJ Moore?
Honestly, as much as he has been a bright spot in terms of the receiving game, the big thing that stands out to me when I'm watching, whether it's watching live or watching film, is his blocking. I think that's I think he, as you said, Antonio Williams is going to play in the NFL. TJ Moore is as well, I think. And in a situation where I don't think he's going to be a star player at the next level, I think his blocking can really be an asset to a team. And he's been, I think of I want to say it was like a 75-yard touchdown in the Georgia Tech game for Bryant Wesco Jr. There was TJ Moore down the field, 30, 40, 45 yards blocking for him. And that was able to spur one of Clemson's biggest plays of that game and the season up to that point. So I think his blocking has been a bit slept on. I don't think he's the most dynamic receiver that you're going to see, but he can absolutely fill it up from a stat sheet perspective. And he's been a solid weapon for Cade Klubnik as well.
Drew, I don't want to put you on the spot here, but what I want you to do is to, and I'm sure you've thought about this because there's probably 100 different reasons that contribute to why Clemson just has not performed up to the level that they normally do. And looking at it, it's like one week I think it's this, one week I think it's this, and then I'm not really sure what's going on there. And I think it's difficult for anybody to put their finger on it. I mean, if Dabo Sweeney could put his finger on it, it would have been corrected and they would have gone on. But it feels like there's a couple of things that just aren't clicking there. What is your perception of this team? Why it has not played up to the level that everybody in the ACC and nationally expect them to?
I think that it's a little bit of everything, right? Complementary football. That's been a buzzword for Dabo during whether it be post game, during the week. He's been talking a lot about we can be a really, really good team if we just play complementary football. I thought that in the Louisville game that was on display. After after a low snap on a punt, uh, back back going to Jack Smith, who's been just absolutely just as good as you could have asked all season long. He gets tackled all of a sudden a short field. The defense backs up the Louisville offense and forces a missed field goal. While yes, they were fortunate in that in the moment for the field goal to be missed, they backed up the offense and the special teams when those sides of the ball weren't able to get it going. It's been a little bit of everything. I mean, in the Louisville game, you hold the team to 19 points. In the LSU game, you hold them to 17 points. And then you watch the Syracuse game, the Duke game, the Georgia Tech game. where they're just coverage busts. And I think some of that can be chalked up to it's year one in Tom Allen's system, and it's going to take the players a little bit of time to be accustomed to just the little intricacies of how the scheme works and whatnot. But I don't think it's been one thing for every game. That's kind of been the interesting part, to be honest with you.
Yeah. You talk about the system, the intricacies of the system, and one of the things that, when somebody lays that out for me, Drew, the first thing that I think of is that, well, if a program, if the way that a coordinator has laid something out is got maybe too many intricacies, you're looking at an issue where, especially with people in the transfer portal and the amount of people that you're recruiting, there may not be enough overlap between the two to maintain that consistency year after year to make that work. And that, I think, is the thing that I'm seeing, that with Clemson, is that they're moving from that the way that most programs have operated over the years is that, they've gone out and they've recruited, and Dabo's been really hesitant to move into using the transfer portal. But when you're recruiting and you're bringing people in and they're staying there with you for 3-4 years, and it's the next man up, those intricacies work well. But when you have a situation where you bring somebody in as a recruit and then they go, yeah, I'm not playing, so I'm going to hit the transfer portal and go someplace else and get some play time, so you lose the effectiveness. Is that something that maybe is in play here? I mean, that's one thing that I've actually thought about, is that maybe there's that, there's that overlap that should be there is not, and I'm not sure it's ever going to come back.
I think it's I think it's definitely a fair point. I mean, you've seen it, it's interesting going back to look at those 2010s Clemson teams under Dabo Sweeney, those pr those prime Alabama teams under Nick Saban,
Yeah.
those LSU teams under Ed Orgeron, especially at the back end of the 2010s, just stocked with NFL players 3, 4 deep at almost every position, right? Now that talent is dispersed. And I think I think that in terms of, you mentioned that Dabo's been reluctant to hit the portal so far. He's been in a bit of a unique situation where he's had enough talent on his roster, I feel like, where he hasn't felt the need to add from the portal. And while I understand that, the rubber is about to hit the road, in my opinion, on how he feels. I think that over this offseason, they're going to have to add the most players that they ever have out of the portal, especially on the defensive side. You have a lot of veteran players. On the offensive side, obviously, Cade Klubnik about to graduate and move on.
Yeah.
They're in a bit of an interesting spot, especially if they want to contend going forward in the ACC and nationally as well.
I don't see anything, absolutely nothing wrong with moving forward. And sometimes, not every program is moving forward at the same pace, and we can see that across the board. But the one word that keeps popping up in my head, and I think is really playing out, is parity. And I think you just pointed that out. It's because you've got players that, used to be loaded up at Clemson and Alabama and LSU and some other teams. And now, they're being disseminated to all these other teams, and some teams that you would never expect to be winning the way they are winning because they're getting those players. So it's going to be interesting to see where things go with Clemson. I think that maybe it's a slow move in that direction, but eventually, I think you're right, is that this offseason, this may be very telling about where Dabo sees the team going and how to get there. So that's a good point you bring up. Well,
Couple players I want to bring up on defense, and we're talking transfers. Let's talk one of them right now. We see a lot of the mock drafts for 2026 have Peter Woods, T.J. Parker, Avion Terrell in the middle of the first round, but another guy who isn't getting a lot of publicity is Will Helt, who actually came over from Purdue in the portal. He actually leads the team in sacks and TFLs. How has Will been able to transition so seemingly into this defense?
I think I think I think a characteristic that's going to pop off the film for whichever NFL team ends up selecting held, whether it be first round, second round, third round. I think it's his motor. I think that as much as I mentioned, the intricacies of the Tom Allen defense haven't been haven't been hand in glove type of fit at times. I think I think that Helt has been able to overcome a little bit of that by just playing hard, doing a good job of chasing the ball, and especially I don't think he's had the back half of the season that he would have liked, to be honest. But boy, in the front half of the season, he was looking like a top 15, top 20 pick to me, I would say. Um, hard not to compare where Tom Allen just came from, Penn State, where he was able to help a guy like Abdul Carter be drafted so highly in the first round as he was. So I don't I don't know if Held is quite that player, but what really what really sticks out on the film is just the motor that he plays with, and that he's a really hardworking guy. He's a really quiet player. He's not one of these guys that's going to be all loud and braggadocious or anything like that, but he has a work ethic to go with it.
Another player I want to bring up, Sammy Brown, leads the team in tackles and second in sacks, someone who, as a sophomore, has just really blown up. What can you tell us about Sammy?
His speed, I think that's going to be a weapon on any team he plays on, whether it be Clemson or the next level. He's been a bit of a bit of a steady Eddie of the defense that, to be honest, hasn't been as consistent as they wanted to be in the preseason. The side on ability, I think that that's something that, whether it's in coverage or in defense against the run, I think that he's been a big weapon to deploy in a lot of different kinds of ways that Tom Allen has wanted to on that defense.
Coaches don't like to look ahead, but we can. We should see Clemson get bowl eligibility next week, beating Furman. And then 2 weeks from that is the obviously rivalry game against South Carolina. Looking at where South Carolina has been and where Clemson is, how do you shape up Clemson against them?
I think that you would have to favor Clemson at this point. Rivalry games are tricky. We all know that. I think a great example of that is Ohio State and Michigan right now, where Ohio State looks like they're just a mile and a half ahead of a lot of teams right now, and but there's always going to be a psychological element to that game with Michigan beating them. But I think that Clemson is definitely the better team. A lot of it with Clemson just comes down to minimizing mistakes. As cliche as that sounds, they'll be facing a South Carolina team that, we saw their ceiling in College Station, where they can play with just about everybody. They can play with Alabama. They can compete with they can compete with the best of them. I think that if Clemson's offensive line, which we just learned today that they're going to be without two starters for the rest of the season up there. I think if they're able to control the line of scrimmage, and if they're able to run the ball, I think that's going to do a number on being able to control the game, control the time of possession, give Cade Klubnik the time that he needs in the pocket. And I think that, right now I would favor the Tigers to win that game, but that's just how I see it at this point.
That's all that matters, man. All right, Drew, I gave you enough time to think about this. So, and I don't think it's going to take very long for you to come up with your favorite foods in your favorite restaurants, especially if you're going to a football or a basketball game, maybe a place that you like to go. So tell us a little bit, because you're down in South Carolina, correct?
Correct, correct.
Okay, so this might come in handy for any of us who are in your neck of the woods, and I am from time to time. So tell me some place that you like to go and the foods that you like to eat.
I would say right now and it's funny because this is actually a place that every time I drive up to Clemson head head to press conferences, games, practices, or or whatever, I always pass this place and I always think about that I think it's a slept-on place. It's called the Smokin' Pig, and it's about 15 to 20 minutes from Clemson, from the campus.
Okay.
It's gotten a little bit of national acclaim. The brisket, the the pork, the barbecue, they it's one of those places where it's not going to get a lot of it's not going to get a lot of acclaim from people outside the region, but if you're here, you you know that that's the spot.
Yeah.
So
That your
it's a good
is
time.
barbecue and brisket and stuff. Is that your forte?
I would say that that's probably barbecue, and growing up in North Carolina, that definitely plays a factor for me
All right.
there,
All right,
but
so now that you bring
yes.
up the North Carolina barbecue thing, so then we got to find out which side of the state you're leaning to here. Is it going to be one type of barbecue or the other type?
It's funny. It's funny you mentioned that. I do not discriminate. I'm on
Good man.
I'm
Good
on
man.
I'm on whatever's being served in terms of, barbecue, pork, whatnot. I'm eating it, so
Just put it on my plate. It's all good. Yeah, I got you.
exactly.
I
Yeah.
got you. Um, that's good. I like that. Smoking pig. All right, I'm gonna check that out. I think I've actually heard of that. To be honest with you, and you're right. Places like that, local places, tend to have sort of that. Oh, I guess the reputation sort of it stays within a region more than it,
Hmm.
it gets out because it's and not everybody likes barbecue. What's wrong
Hmm.
with you people who don't
I
like
know.
barbecue? I
It's a bit
just
of an organic feel. I mean, when College Game Day came down in, I believe that was 2022 for
mhm.
Clemson, NC State, Pat McAfee did mention it on the game day broadcast. So we've gotten a little bit of publicity, but
There you go.
just gotta put that out there.
That all works. All works. Any last questions, Will?
Yeah, I want to switch over to basketball real quick, get a couple
Okay.
questions in.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's so far, I mean, it's a very small sample size. They're 3-1, lost to Georgetown. And one of the things that has stood out to me in this early point of the season is the way they've been able to take care of the ball. I think they have one of the lowest turnover rates in the country to this point. What do you see as being the reason for that?
I think I think honestly, when you look at a Brad Brownell team just historically, there's one there's really two through lines, I would say. It's a team that's going to be hard as nails on the glass, whether it be offensive rebounding or defensive rebounding, and then a team that's going to take care of the ball and play within themselves. I think this is this is the most this is the most transfer heavy roster that Brad Brownell has fielded in some time uh, for Clemson. But I think that he's been really intentional about the guys that he's brought in. It's a lot of veteran players, and not all coming from the power conference level. Um, Jake Wallin, uh, as an example, 3-point shooter, but hasn't really been bit by the turnover bug much, if at all, this season, right? So they've a bit of an egalitarian offense where no one's no one's controlling the ball too much. They don't have one standout player that the defense is going to say, "Oh, we have to circle him on the scouting report." I think they share the ball well. Unfortunate loss to Georgetown uh, over this past weekend, but I think that they're primed to be a bit of a sleeper in the ACC um, this season. I think they have a chance to make it back to another NCAA tournament as they did last year.
Player who I think we don't see a lot of this anymore. A lot of players who redshirt and then come back and then come around and have a big role. Ace Buckner is a top 150 kid from for the class of 2024, and he's come in and he's tied with Nick Davidson for the team lead in scoring. What can you tell us about him?
It's funny because the joke going on around the beat is, well, his dad's jersey's in the rafters, so he's just following in his footsteps, right?
Hmm.
But he's been off to a good start. I think he projects as, yes, a little bit of an undersized guard, but I think he's a guy that can really beat teams with his speed, and he's always under control. He's not going to run himself into traffic or into the corners or into trouble all that often. It's it's been over these first four games, especially the first three against teams in non-conference that Clemson was projected to beat fairly easily. Coach Brownell has really he's he's run a bit of an equal minutes type of a rotation, just trying to see what works, what doesn't. And I think Ace Buckner, coming off the bench as much as he has so far, he's really been able to take advantage of some of the second units he's been up against during his time on the floor. So I think he's primed for a solid season at minimum and a great season potentially as well.
You mentioned a lot of there are a lot of new faces on this team, but one of the players that's still around is Dylan Hunter. How is he feels like he's kind of the leader of this team. How has he been with this new look roster?
He's he's definitely been he's definitely been one of the leaders, I would say. He coming off of last year's team where there was so much turnover, and yes, it was a high level team. There was a there were a lot of questions over the offseason of, well, Dylan's the only one coming back that was in the rotation. What to really expect? Obviously, they bring in as many portal additions as they do, but I think that it's been kind of funny when we've been able to talk to, whether it be transfers or players that were incumbent on last year's team. They've talked about all the team bonding activities that they've done off the court, um, watching movies, hanging out, playing video games, whatever. And I think that as much as you want to spend as much time as possible on basketball, especially early in the season and even before games are played, those those off the court activities are really valuable. I feel like Hunter and the other veterans on this team have really been able to mesh together because of it.
Brownell always comes up with a surprise for us from Clemson when it comes down to ACC men's basketball. So it's worth keeping an eye on. And maybe maybe Brad can talk with Dabo about the effectiveness of transfer portals.
For sure, for sure.
Get some help there, man.
Yeah.
Hey, Drew, we appreciate you joining us. Drew Cagle of Clemson on Sports Illustrated, sharing a little bit of information about what's going on with football, looking at basketball. And if you happen to be down in the neck of the woods there near Clemson, great place to hunker down and spend a few hours scarfing up some great barbecue and brisket. So, uh, and thank you for that part because that's always at the top of my list when it comes down to going to games and stuff. I want to know where I'm going to be eating either before or after the game, one or the other. So, appreciate you
Absolutely.
joining us, Drew.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys. Thank you for
Thank-
having me on.
yeah, thanks, Drew.
Appreciate Drew coming on and talking with us, Clemson, on Sports Illustrated. Let's talk a little bit about Clemson and this game that was pretty important for them moving forward with a chance at a bowl bid. But it was also important, well, from the standpoint of Louisville, just kind of shot themselves in the foot from the standpoint of maybe having some kind of shot at the ACC title game, which was a slim one to begin with, but nonetheless, the final score there on Friday night was Clemson 20, Louisville 19. Boy, what a wacky game!
Well, you talked about it, Jim. I mean, the ACC went into the week with a gaggle of teams that had a chance to go to the ACC championship game. It's still a gaggle, but it's thinned out a little bit.
Yes,
Um, yeah, I this was just a weird game because it felt like neither team wanted to win this game, quite frankly. And the only difference is Louisville missing a PAT on their first touchdown of the game.
yeah,
And they had back-to-back field goal opportunities in the final couple minutes of the game and missed both. Mm. And
crazy.
Clemson won this game despite 308 yards of offense. And Q1 Brown 135 yards on the ground in a loss, but most of the time when you commit 10 penalties, you're not going to win a football game. And that is part of the one of many reasons Louisville lost this game
That that
and lost their chance at the ACC championship, most likely.
that was just such a flat out disappointing performance on the part of Louisville.
Hmm.
I don't even know what to think. Watching that game, I mean, it was kind of fun to watch for sure. And I don't have a dog in that hunt, but I mean, it was just sort of like Louisville just seemed to be wanting to give the game away. And I'm going like,
Hmm.
what is going on here? What is going on here? Now, if they turn around and they lose to Kentucky, uh,
Boo.
boy, the pitchforks will be coming out in Louisville.
They're going to be which makes no sense because I don't think, well, yeah, you can criticize Brom for some of the decisions he made in that game, but in this coaching cycle, you're not going to do
Yeah,
any better, folks. I'm sorry
no,
to say.
and he's an awesome coach.
He's a
To
great
say
coach.
one.
He's going to get a contract extension. He's going to stay there for a while.
Yep.
He's a native son. Well, why the hell would you kick him out of town?
Yeah, it's be stupid. It's sort of like kicking Dabo out of Clemson. It just doesn't make sense.
Mm-mm.
Anyway, moving on. On Saturday, I was really hoping for something different than what happened here. Um, Started out sort of interesting, and then I just realized, boy, talking about just being having better players and performing better. Notre Dame with a 37-15 win over Pitt. I honestly, I thought going into this game, Pitt had a shot. I really did. And then I started watching this game in the first couple of minutes, and I'm going, nah, this game's already over.
Well, Pat Narduzzi said during the week when asked about the significance of this game, and he basically downplayed and said it doesn't mean anything, which is true because it doesn't count towards the ACC standings.
Right.
And these last two games are far more important. Pitt sure as hell played like it didn't matter. They had 219 yards of offense in this game. Mason Heinschel threw for
Horrible.
just 126 yards, threw a pick six, but the injury of Noah Des Reed was injured in this game, and they like carried him off. I obviously we're recording this on Sunday night. We're not going to know the significance of that injury going forward, and he might be done for the season at this point, but we'll see. But it's a tough loss for Pitt. But like I said, it doesn't matter. This game meant more for Notre Dame because they're the team that needs a win like this to keep afloat in the college football playoff rankings.
But the thing that baffles me is, I can understand to some degree why Pat Narduzzi would say what he did. But on the other side of this coin, if Pitt had won that game, that would have been huge for them. The implications for them would have been huge. It would have knocked Notre Dame out of the college football playoffs.
Yeah, I was just going to make that point because that would have been their third loss. Granted, the losses are to Miami and Texas A&M, but three losses is they're gonna be really hard pressed to have gotten into the playoff, and a lot of bleep would have to hit the fan for them to get back in.
Yeah. Next up, boy, talking about wanting to give away your shot at the ACC championship game and maybe even the CFP. Georgia Tech looked for every possible reason to give it to Boston College, and Boston College was taking it to them, man. It's like, I don't understand Georgia Tech these days. Last couple of games have just been phenomenally crap. Okay, yeah, there's something wrong there, and it needs to be corrected if you plan on going any further in the postseason. Georgia Tech 36, Boston College 34.
I'll get to Georgia Tech in a second, but Boston College, like
Yeah.
we've talked about them for the last couple of weeks. I'm like, they're not quitting. Remember, they
Oh,
gave Louisville a game. They've really been competitive these last few games and was what 30 something seconds away from basically causing chaos in the ACC.
yep.
But they just like I feel like a lot of times this season they just couldn't seal the deal. Um, and I don't know. BC led the game 28-17 early in the fourth. Then Georgia Tech came in, they kicked a field goal to make it 28-20, and then scored to make it 28-26 and missed the 2-point conversion, but then went down and scored, got the touchdown to take a 33-28 lead. Boston College went down and scored with less than 4 minutes left, or a little over 4 minutes left, and then held the lead until Georgia Tech got a field goal in the final seconds to ultimately win that game. Georgia Tech ended out outgaining Boston College 628 to 537. So there are plenty of yards to be had in this game, over 1,100 to be exact. Haynes King, 371 yards passing, 53 rushing, which is what you expect from him. He's just going to do it all for Georgia Tech. Both Eric Rivers and Malik Rutherford were over 100 yards in this game. I thought this was Dylan Lonergan's best performance since that Michigan State game in week two. He threw for 362 yards and two touchdowns. Really had a nice connection with the receivers. Some of that might be just because Georgia Tech's defense isn't that good. But Turbo Richard at 141 yards, two touchdowns in this game. One of his best performances of the season as well. And like I said, BC may be 1-10, but they sure will not quit on this season. They're fighting for everything. And I don't. I've seen the discourse out there about people trying to get rid of Bill O'Brien already after 2 seasons. I think that's more just for content's sake, and
Oh,
because are you going to get any better than that? It's already been a rough week for Boston College because of what's happened on the basketball court, but yeah, Bill O'Brien's going to be back next season,
yeah.
and you should enjoy it. I just don't know what more you can expect out of this program right now.
Here's the thing: Bill O'Brien's not the problem. If the school wants to make a an investment and up facilities, up the money that's available
Mhm.
for players, um, that's the solution.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
that's where it is.
we're seeing that go on with a couple of the Big Ten schools. Maryland and Wisconsin both announced their coaches are going to be back next season, and they're going to, invest more in the NIL field. And they're probably thinking, what happened to them next season's what happened to Virginia this season. We'll get into the who's in a second, but yeah, it's not necessarily always gonna work, but I think BC really needs to up its NIL package, that's for sure.
Yeah, we've talked ad nauseum about the fact that it's business now, and any school in college, athletics that is not running their operations like a business, um, the big L, it's just, yeah, it's stupid. Miami over NC State. I was surprised that the Pac didn't do any better than this. Miami really put on a show here, 41-7, and just absolutely shut down. Um, I mean, really shut down NC State.
Yeah, this was the most surprising result of the week. I thought NC State had a real shot to at least give Miami a scare,
Be
but
competitive. Yeah.
yeah, be competitive. But this was just total domination by the Hurricanes. Carson Beck threw three touchdown passes, 291 yards. Miami ran for 214 yards, almost 6 yards a carry. but they held NC State to 149 total yards. But that lone touchdown you mentioned, they scored it with 2:18 left in the game. So it was essentially a garbage time
Yeah.
touchdown to prevent the shutout. And I think and I see this, I've seen this online to talk about Doran, and it feels like maybe he's at the end of his run, and it's just time to hit the refresh button, quite frankly. But like I mentioned, how much better are you going to do right now? Do you try to get him to retire and make him go and start over again? I don't know. I think this athletics department has a real conundrum on its hands.
Well, they reached out and they did something smart with their men's basketball coach. So, it's not like
I
you
don't
could.
think there's a football version of Will Wade out there right
Well,
now.
hopefully not. To be honest with you, I hope there isn't. But um, uh, there's got to be a better answer than what has been going on there in Raleigh for the last couple of years. I mean, come on, man. It's vanilla. All
Yeah, it
right.
just feels like Dave's past his peak there. I just don't know if in the current state of the ACC if he's going to be able to get it back.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't see it. Virginia. Um, boy, talking about waking up. I was like, boy, this is going to be a close game, man. This is going to be a close game. This is going to be a real battle. Well, this final score is not indicative whatsoever of what Virginia was doing to Duke. 34-17, the final score there. Duke blew their opportunity, and they had one of the best opportunities of actually moving into a position that they could get a shot at the ACC championship.
I would argue this is the most complete win, the best win of Virginia's season. Now that you look at it, when you factor in that this was on the road at a conference opponent, and you wiped the floor with them.
Yeah.
Granted, it got a little hairy for a minute there in the fourth quarter, but it feels like that Wake Forest loss really woke them up. Um, this was total domination, really, by the Hoos. They racked up 540 yards of offense compared to 255 for Duke, and 106 of that came in the fourth quarter when it was all but decided. Through three quarters, Jamari Taylor actually had more total yards than Duke did. That's just kind of the performance Virginia had on both sides of the ball. Taylor ran for 133 yards, two touchdowns, including a 78-yard run in the second half. And like I said, after the third quarter, it was 31-3. Duke scored a TD and had a pick six to cut it to 31-17, but Virginia got down on the next possession, kicked a field goal to make it 34-17, and that was all she wrote. The defense, like I said, for Virginia, played a really good game. They sacked Darian Mensah four times, and it was more impressive because Cam Robinson left this game with an injury in the first half, came back for the first play of the second half, and then sat back out the rest of the game. And Virginia it definitely controls its own destiny in the ACC at this point with a chance to go to the ACC championship game.
Well, speaking of Wake Forest, 28-12, defeating North Carolina. Now, the thing about this game that stood out to me more than probably the final score, because I wasn't too surprised by it, was the fact that Bill Belichick refused to shake Dickert's hand at the end of the game on the field. And I'm just thinking, Bill, you're a regular asshole. You know what I'm saying? I mean, dude, come on, really? Really? You really are. I mean, you know, I, come on.
After the week where there was rumors of him having interest in a New York Giants job, and basically the things that were moving on the Wake Forest, but telling you folks, keep an eye out for Wake Forest. I mean,
Yeah, they're
this is
doing some
this
good
is
stuff.
we talked about Virginia Tony Elliott doing one of the best coaching jobs, getting Virginia to 9-2. with a chance to go 10-2 if they, beat their rival for the first time in 20 or for the second time in the last 20 years. But
Mm,
there's a scenario where we could have a 10-2 Virginia and a 9-3 Wake Forest. Because Wake plays Delaware next and then closes the season with Duke, and both of those games are definitely winnable. But as far as this game goes, um, Wake had over 400 yards offense for the first time in over a month. The Oregon State game, which ultimately got their coach fired. Wake ran for 223 yards as a team. Carlos Hernandez, 6 catches, 100 yards, including a 70-yard TD off a flea flicker, which was a really cool play. And once again, North Carolina was held to 257 total yards because that's about what they do every week. If they're going to look at addressing one side of the ball this upcoming season, they got to figure out the offense because
yeah,
it's
something
been
else.
bad. But like I said, Wake 7-3. You can make an argument for Jake Dickert as ACC Coach of the Year. I think you can argue Tony Elliott, maybe Brent Key. I think the those three are probably the head above everybody else right now. Maybe Pat Narduzzi if he somehow comes back, if Pitt comes back and gets into the championship game. But I think it's probably either going to be Elliott or Dickert, quite frankly.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that. I can see this too. Yeah. Um, Final game: Florida State 34, Virginia Tech 14.
Yeah, typical Florida State game on the offense. They ran for 237 yards and 3 touchdowns. The Hokies, that's their MO too. They've been running the ball a lot. They ran for 238 yards and lost, but with this loss, they dropped to 4-7 on the or 3-7 on the year, is it right? And no bowl game for the Hokies this year, but they have a chance to play spoiler the next 2 weeks with their closing stretch of Miami and Virginia. So
Mm.
they're definitely going to be trying, folks.
Yeah, and this whatever is going on with Franklin or whomever.
I Like it was funny to me to see that on Saturday, the reports from Pete Thamel talking about, oh, they're in early discussions. Like the discussions have been going on for a few weeks now, and
Weeks.
I quite frankly don't know. Like I think Hokie fans are very excited about the possibility, and I know his agent Jimmy Sexton is really good at leveraging things, trying to get more money for another job, and he might be waiting to see if one of these other big time jobs opens. Maybe he's interested in the Auburn job, or what if Florida State moves on from Mike Norvell at the end of the season? There might be a better job for him out there than Virginia Tech. We'll see. I mean, we're not going to know right now. And if something does come up, check out ACC Nation Net on TikTok, and I'll be talking about it.
But it would be absolutely crushing to be in this situation and thinking that pretty much you are getting close to signing him, and Florida State or Auburn jumps in at the last moment and says, this is what we can offer you, and we'll give you exactly what you're looking for. And he goes, yeah. And he leaves Virginia Tech hanging. I mean, that would, wow,
Uh-huh.
talking about some bad feelings. Whew.
Yeah, Frank, he may not want to go to Florida State if he does this, because man, if Florida State ever came to Blacksburg, oh boy, that man's going to be the most hated man in America.
Yeah. Oh, well, you have to
Oh, that is
get
good.
behind a long list of others for that one. Hey, here are
Hmm.
the games that are coming up this week. Florida State is at NC State. Miami is at Virginia Tech, Louisville at SMU, Delaware at Wake Forest, Syracuse at Notre Dame, Duke at North Carolina, Furman at Clemson, Pitt at Georgia Tech, and Cal is at Stanford. That last game is a long time rivalry. It should be
Big
an
game.
interesting game. I think it might be closer than one might imagine. Out of those games, Will, which ones should we be watching?
Yeah, you want to see Louisville SMU. That one is going to go a long ways to helping decide the ACC championship game. If SMU can win at home, they will have a shot going in the final week of the season. I think a loss might eliminate them. The other game, Pitt, Georgia Tech, obviously, if Georgia Tech wins, I believe they're locked in to the
Right.
ACC championship
Yeah.
game. So I don't remember where I saw it, but I think there's like a way Virginia can actually clinch the ACC championship game without playing this upcoming weekend. I don't remember it off the top of my head, but I think it's Miami, SMU. No, Miami has, yeah, but SMU for sure, and George or Pitt, but I don't remember. I think there might have been somebody else, but I don't remember the whole scenario. But those are probably the big games of the week. Obviously, we have rivalry games like Duke, North Carolina, Cal, Stanford. The game should be interesting. Cal bowl eligible, looking to really, close the season strong with their stud quarterback.
Mhm.
How does Duke respond off the loss to Virginia, traveling to Chapel Hill? Um, say Wake Forest could be 8-3 after this week. That's one of the best stories in the country. Um, Miami going to Blacksburg. Could the Hokies play spoiler there? Um, but yeah, There's a lot of intrigue coming into these final couple weeks of the ACC football season. I'm kind of sad it's almost over already.
Seems quick.
Yeah.
I think it was, but basketball seems to be pretty intriguing as well. There's a lot of
Hmm.
teams to keep an eye on there. On the men's side, especially, I think things
Yeah.
are really looking up.
Yeah. I'll just run through a couple things real quick while we're wrapping up. Tuesday, Louisville held serve beating Kentucky by 8 in a game that was Louisville dominated for the most part. Michigan Wake lost in overtime. That was a really good game. Wake had a shot to win that game in Detroit. Florida State looked real game against Florida, lost by 2. Um, Boston College again losing to Central Connecticut by 1. Central Connecticut at the time of the game was ranked 333rd on KenPom. Other things of note this week. Saturday, Virginia put up 104 points in a win over Marshall. They actually had 61 points in the first half. That was the most points in a half since 2007. We talked briefly Clemson losing to Georgetown in a real competitive game. Sunday, just a couple game. Notre Dame lost by 1 to Ohio State. As we're speaking, Miami is playing Florida right now, so that should be an intriguing game. Upcoming this week, the games of the week, we're going to talk Tuesday night, Kansas Duke in the Champions Classic. That should be a really, really fun game. Kansas is kind of down actually from where they've been in recent years. That's probably the most intriguing game of the week as we get until we get later in the week. We start getting to those uh, those Thanksgiving Day tournaments. We get the Baja Mar out in the Bahamas. Wake Forest is taking on Texas Tech Thursday. Then Friday we've got the Greenbrier tip-off with Virginia taking on Northwestern. Louisville Cincinnati should be a fun game. That's actually at Cincinnati. We talked about Clemson there in the Charleston Classic against West Virginia. So yeah, there's a lot of really good ACC
Good
basketball
stuff.
this week and the next couple of weeks, and we'll obviously keep you in the loop here. And like I said, ACC Nation Net on TikTok. We're going to be talking about any news that transpires there as well.
A lot of good stuff, and also the YouTube ESPN thing has been resolved, and looks to me as if people who are on YouTube have actually come out the winners in that, at least initially, because they are getting some of the newer stuff that ESPN is putting out is included in their package. And you also got a $20 rebate if you signed up for it, which will be on next month's bill. So
Yep. And I'm gonna real quick before we go too, just a couple things on the women's side, a couple of disappointing outings. Virginia lost at home to UMBC, shades of 2018. Hey, they're never going to want to schedule them in anything ever again. North Carolina played in a UCLA and lost by 18. UCLA looked really good. Duke lost again to West Virginia in the Greenbrier women's tip-off, 57-49. Notre Dame got absolutely throttled by Michigan, 93-54. That one's a really surprising result. And this is coming out of a recent game where Hannah Hidalgo had like 16 steals in a game and set a record. That's just amazing. NC State, the top 10 team, lost to TCU by 10. We actually had a conference game. Louisville beat Clemson by 11 today. Um, One of the more shocking surprise this is Pitt losing to a Division III school, Scranton, by 6. It feels like it's going to be a long season there. Georgia Tech lost at home to Jacksonville as well. We've touted the strength of the women's side on the ACC for some time, but it feels like it's just not as good this year. I mean, we've seen some
It's not
teams.
all of the teams.
Yeah,
You got top tier, and then you got the rest.
yeah, and even the top tier teams have struggled. We talked about Duke.
Yeah,
They're playing good defense, but they're struggling to score.
that was an ugly game.
And
West
and
Virginia.
even like UNC losing to UCLA, that was a rough game. And I don't know how to explain Notre Dame losing by almost 40 to Michigan. That was a real shocking result.
Early in the season, I don't put a lot of credence in a lot of games, to be honest with you. I mean, we'll see. I mean, once you get to late December, if you're doing that kind of stuff, you got problems. So see if they can correct them. All right. Check us out on multiple social media outlets, and as Will indicated on TikTok, there's lots of content there at ACC Nation Net. And go to accnation.net, our website. That's where you can see all the connections to our social media platforms. Also, you can subscribe to the podcast. You can listen to us on streaming radio, and you can watch us and subscribe to our YouTube channel. So any of those, we would appreciate it. We thank you for letting us join you every time. And thanks again to Drew Cagle for dropping by and talking about Clemson football and basketball. Till next time, cheers.
Gold.
Your source for ACC sports is accnation.net. Follow us on Instagram, TikTok, X, YouTube, Facebook, Reddit, and Blue Sky. For more content, be sure to subscribe.